Atari Game Token is here because today we're going to play a video game based on a board game or board game style, and that game is Glib, with label art that shows you what would happen if your Alphabet SpaghettiOs took over your television and Atari VCS. Let's go ahead and take Glib, a video word game, pop it in my Atari 7800 Pro system, use a joystick controller, and see how it plays today. Let's go to the game. Glib was published by Cell Show and Writer and carries a copyright year of 1983. This was the only 2600 game made by the company who was more famous for publishing board games like Trivial Pursuit and Scrabble during this time. In 1986, Cell Show and Writer, who had been in the game business since the late 1800s, was bought by Coleco, maker of the Atari rival ColecoVision. In 1989, Hasbro bought the primary assets of Coleco when they went through bankruptcy. And in 1998, Hasbro also bought what was left of the home division of Atari, and the world goes round and round. The box proclaims this to be a video word game cartridge, brought to you by the Scrabble brand people. Glib is a Scrabble-style game for 1 or 2 players. While the box of the game boasts about 25 game variations, they all share a similar gameplay style, with the goal to score points by selecting letter tiles from the top rack to spell a word on the bottom rack. When the game starts, the top rack will shuffle letters until you press the button to stop it, and the first letter will be randomly placed into your bottom rack. You use the joystick to move the cursor to the tile you want on the top rack and press the button to select it. Then you move the cursor to where you want the tile on the bottom rack to be and press the button to place it. You can place it in between letters, but if you place it on the right side, it will slide all the way to the left so that there are no blank spaces in between letters. You can also rearrange letters on the bottom rack if you wish. Once you are happy with your word, you can move your cursor to the Enter bar on the bottom right, represented by the letter E. Pressing this once will pause the game and stop the time. This allows you a chance to check a dictionary to make sure the word exists and is spelled correctly, because the game itself can't tell the difference between a real word and complete gibberish. If you want the word accepted, you press the Enter bar a second time and the game will count up the points and add them to your score, unless you are playing a 2-player game, and in that case, it is the other player who gets to confirm the word you spelled. Words are scored in a similar fashion to the game Scrabble. Each letter is worth a different amount of points depending on how difficult it is to use that letter when spelling a word. Unlike Scrabble, there are no blank tiles. If there is a light blue line under a letter in the bottom rack, the letter value doubles. If the line is dark blue, it triples. If the entire bottom rack turns pink, the word value doubles, and it triples if the rack is red. You can also pass your turn by pressing the P button on the bottom right. This is helpful because there may be times when you can't spell a word and you want to do the right thing and pass. Each game consists of 98 tiles split into 14 turns for 1 player or 7 turns each for 2 players. You can select the 2-player game by putting the left difficulty switch in the A position. There are 5 main game variations. In Game 1, called Billboard, every turn a new set of letters is shown, and unused letters during a turn will not return. Game 2 is called Skill Builder. It is like Game 1, except that unused letters don't disappear. Game 3 is called Time's Up, where each turn you try to spell as many words as you can from your 7 letters until time runs up and you go to your next turn. Game 4 is called Encore, where the available letters parade across the top rack and you must catch them to use them. Game 5 is called Over the Edge. It is like Game 4, except that letters that disappear won't return and the parade of letters can come to an end. In games 1, 2, and 3, you are allowed to bring letters from the bottom rack back into the top rack, but you cannot do so in games 4 and 5. Each game also has 5 skill levels. Level 1 has no timer bar. Level 2 has a 132-second time bar for each turn. Level 3 has a 39-second time bar. Level 4 has a 26-second time bar, and Level 5 has time bars of random speeds. You can also make the time bar move twice as fast by placing the right difficulty switch in the A position. Graphically speaking, there really isn't much to be said about Glib. Well, at least you can easily tell one letter from another. The same can be said for the limited sounds in the game, and the fact that the game over screen will not stop playing its little jingle on its own can get real annoying real quick. And just like Scrabble, the game is completely family friendly until one of you sickos decide to spell something naughty, and I know who you are. At the time I researched on eBay, loose copies were going anywhere from $60 to $90, as it is a pretty rare game. So what did I think of Glib? Board games usually have to do something special to become a successful video game in order to justify the extra costs they often incur. Otherwise, why spend the extra money when you can simply buy the board game instead? So usually the video game version will do something special, like add the ability to play against a computer, or maybe simplify the game or add new challenges, and perhaps some other features as well. But Glib seems to go in the opposite direction. It doesn't look as good as a standard Scrabble board. It doesn't really simplify the game. As a matter of fact, it almost feels clumsier. You can't play against a computer, but worst of all is the sheer fact that it can't even tell the difference between a correct and incorrect word. So unless you are an expert wordsmith, you can either use a dictionary, which really, who wants to do that when playing a video game, or you can decide just to make up your own words as you please. Hugwax? Is it a word? It is now. Basically, the 2600 simply wasn't the game machine to bring a Scrabble-esque game to, unless you had added some high memory chip in the cartridge that contained a huge word bank, which at the time it came out wasn't going to happen. It simply was too soon for a Scrabble video game. At least when Parker Brothers got into the video game business, they were smart enough to bring popular arcade games to the 2600 rather than try to make a Monopoly game work on the system. And by the way, Hasbro bought Parker Brothers too. Man, who hasn't Hasbro owned? So where am I going to rank Glib? Well, to me, if a game can't tell you if you won or not, it's really not much of a game at all. It's almost like some sort of useless Scrabble point calculator. I'd rather play anything than Glib again, even the terrible shark attack. At least I don't have to tell the game when the shark got me. Did the shark bite you? Press E for yes or P for no. So out of the 104 Atari 2600 games I've reviewed, Glib is heading all the way to the bottom. That's right, Glib. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. So what do you think of Glib? Whether you agree or disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Also, feel free to click the like and subscribe buttons. If you'd like to support the show, you could do so at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/NoSwearGamer for more information. And you can follow me on both the Facebook or the Twitter. I'm also a member of the Retro Junkies Network. You can find more retro podcasts and videos at theretrojunkies.com. Thank you for giving me a little part of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of the No Swear Gamer. Take care, and remember, if you won the game, press E. If not, press P.